I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. Nathan Cross, 35 years old, mechanical engineer at Henry Automotive, married to the most beautiful woman who ever looked twice at me. 7 years of marriage, and I still felt that flutter when Vanessa walked into a room. Our life was perfectly ordinary, and I loved it that way. A modest 3-bedroom colonial in Maple Heights. Nothing fancy, but ours. The mortgage was manageable on my $60,000 salary, and Vanessa's part-time yoga instructor income covered extras. We'd talked about kids, but Vanessa always said we should wait. Lately, she'd been less enthusiastic about those conversations. My younger brother Ethan lived differently. At 29, he'd built a real estate empire that left him with more money than sense. His downtown penthouse cost more than I'd make in 5 years, and his garage looked like a luxury car showroom. Sometimes I felt that familiar stab of sibling rivalry parking my Honda next to his latest acquisition. But mostly I was proud. We'd grown up playing basketball in the same driveway, sharing comic books, covering for each other. Blood was blood. Our parents never hid their favoritism. Every family dinner showcased Ethan's latest investment, while my promotion to senior engineer earned polite nods. When Mom forgot my birthday but spent weeks planning Ethan's surprise party, I told myself it didn't matter. I was the responsible one, doing right because it was right, not profitable. That Saturday morning in October, I was making scrambled eggs when I heard the shower running upstairs. Vanessa always took long weekend showers, claiming meditation time. I'd learned to time breakfast perfectly, eggs ready when she emerged, coffee still hot. I loved these quiet moments. Morning light through our kitchen window, coffee and bacon smells, water running through our pipes. This was contentment, what I'd chosen over Ethan's flashy uncertainty, stability, loyalty, a partner who valued substance over show. Vanessa appeared wrapped in her blue robe, dark hair damp and curling, skin flushed from hot water. Even after 7 years, she took my breath away. 5'6" with perfect curves, green eyes that could be playful or mysterious. She'd been getting compliments lately. Yoga kept her in incredible shape, and she'd started spending more on clothes and makeup. She deserved to feel beautiful. "Good morning, handsome," she said, kissing my cheek, leaving lavender shampoo scent. Her lips were soft and familiar. The same lips that had said "I do" 7 years ago, that whispered "I love you" every night. Morning, gorgeous. "Sleep well?" I replied. "Like a baby," she answered, grabbing coffee and adding exact cream and sugar amounts she'd used since we met. "What's the plan today?" "Thought maybe we'd tackle the garage, then grab lunch at that new place you mentioned," I suggested. "Sounds perfect," she smiled, warming my chest. This was my life. Ordinary, predictable, exactly what I wanted. Might hit yoga first, though. The Saturday session Sarah's been raving about. Of course. "Take your time," I assured her. We ate breakfast, discussing nothing important. Neighbor's fence, repainting the guest bedroom, Thanksgiving plans. Normal married conversation after 7 years of practice. I watched Vanessa butter toast and thought how lucky I was. I'd never been the exciting choice, the guy with grand gestures and expensive gifts. But Vanessa chose me anyway, chose stability and loyalty over whatever else was out there. She could have had anyone, but she'd chosen the mechanical engineer with the steady job. Monday morning at Henry, reviewing transmission specifications, my phone buzzed with Vanessa's text. "Missing you already. Can't wait for you to get home tonight." I smiled and typed back, "Miss you too. Love you." "Love you more," she replied immediately. 7 years in, and she was still texting sweet messages. I was the luckiest man alive. I remember smiling at that text, thinking I was the luckiest man alive. I had no idea that at that exact moment she was with him. The following Saturday started identically. Coffee brewing, bacon sizzling, water running upstairs. I was whisking eggs when Vanessa's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd left it while rushing to shower, something she'd been doing more lately. The screen lit up, and I glanced over casually. The message was from E. "Last night was incredible. Send me that photo you promised." My hand froze. The egg started burning, but I couldn't move. Something cold twisted in my stomach as my mind processed what I'd read. E-fire emoji. Last night. Photo. There had to be an explanation. Misunderstanding. Maybe Emma, maybe borrowed phone, maybe, but I knew. In that primitive part of the brain that recognizes danger, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I turned off the burner and approached the counter like a man walking to a cliff's edge. Vanessa's phone sat innocently, screen dark, holding secrets I wasn't sure I wanted. The shower would run 10 more minutes. She always took long weekend showers. My trembling hand picked up the phone. Screen lit up, still unlocked. She'd forgotten to enable auto-lock, something she'd meant to do for weeks. A tiny oversight about to destroy my world. I opened the message thread with shaking fingers. Photos loaded slowly, each one a knife to the chest. Vanessa in black lingerie I'd never seen. Lace and silk costing a fortune, bought with our joint account money while I worried about mortgages. Her body arched for someone else's eyes, pleasure expressions I'd never seen directed at me. Videos were worse. Her voice breathy and eager, saying words she'd never said to me, making sounds I thought only I had heard. But this wasn't with me. This was with E. Someone who made her do things, say things, feel things I apparently never could. Vision tunneled. Hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. This couldn't be real. Had to be nightmare, cruel joke. I forced myself to scroll up, seeing how long this had lasted. Months. Months of messages, photos, videos. Hotels I recognized. Hampton Inn on 5th Street, downtown Marriott, the boutique place where we'd celebrated our anniversary. Afternoon meetings when I was at work earning money, probably paying for those rooms. Lies about yoga classes, book clubs, girls' lunches, now transparent and insulting. The casual intimacy was worst. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Pet names that sickened me. Planning next encounters like the most natural thing, like I didn't exist. Like our marriage was just inconvenience to work around. Then I saw the message from 2 weeks ago. Your brother is so clueless. He has no idea. We can keep this going as long as we're careful. Your brother. The phone slipped from numb fingers, clattering on granite. My brother, Ethan. Golden child. Successful one, who had everything including apparently my wife. 2 betrayals at once. Wife and brother. The 2 people I trusted most, laughing about how clueless I was, how easy deceiving me was, how they could keep destroying my life with careful planning. Rage flooded through me, white hot, all-consuming. I wanted to storm upstairs, drag her from that shower, scream until my throat bled, drive to Ethan's penthouse and beat him bloody, burn everything down. But something else kicked in. Something cold and calculating I didn't know I possessed. The thinking that keeps engineers from making fatal mistakes, that makes you double-check specifications before signing off. If I was going to destroy them, I needed to be smart. I picked up the phone with steady hands and started screenshotting. Every photo, every video, every damning message. I methodically documented months of betrayal. My wife's naked body spread across hotel beds for my brother's pleasure. Their casual cruelty laughing about deceiving me. I airdropped everything to my phone, then deleted airdrop records from hers. Cleared message app recent activity. Put the phone back exactly where it was, screen down, innocent looking. The shower shut off. I scraped burned eggs into garbage and started fresh. Hands moving on autopilot while my mind raced. Vanessa appeared. Same robe, damp hair. Cheek kiss, and I sat eating breakfast with perfectly normal expression. Good morning? Babe, she said brightly, checking her phone briefly. No suspicion. No sense her world had shifted irrevocably. Sleep well? Like a baby, I lied, the words tasting like ash. She had no idea that while she was texting him that afternoon, planning their next hotel visit, I was sitting across from a divorce attorney with her entire affair documented on my phone. Monday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. Instead of Henry Automotive, I drove downtown to Mendoza and Associates. Paul Mendoza had been recommended by Jake from accounting, who'd survived what he called the divorce from hell, with house and dignity intact. The office was exactly what I expected. Professional but not flashy, walls lined with family law books and certificates. Paul was in his 50s. Gray-haired with tired eyes that came from seeing every variation of human betrayal. He looked like a man who'd heard it all. I sat across from his mahogany desk and handed over my phone without preamble. My wife is having an affair with my brother. I need to know my options. I stated. Paul reviewed the evidence methodically, scrolling through screenshots, watching video portions, reading text messages. His expression didn't change, but when he looked up, there was something like respect in his tired eyes. "This is ironclad," he said simply. "Adultery, extensively documented, with a family member no less. In our state, this gives you significant leverage. You'll get the house, most marital assets, minimal if any alimony requirement. She'll walk away with almost nothing." Savage satisfaction flooded through me at those words. "Good, how fast can we move?" I asked. "Fast. We can file today, serve her within 48 hours, he explained. "With evidence this strong, her attorney will advise immediate settlement rather than risk trial. The whole process could complete within 3 to 4 months instead of dragging on for years." Paul leaned back and studied me. "What about your brother? Any plans there?" My jaw tightened. "I'm handling him separately. Be careful," Paul warned. "Don't do anything that could hurt your legal position. No physical confrontation that could result in assault charges. No documented threats. Keep everything clean until papers are filed. I won't kill him," I said flatly. "But he needs to understand what he's done." Paul nodded slowly. "I can't advise you on that, but anything you do should happen after the divorce petition is filed. Once legal process is in motion, it's harder for anyone to claim you're acting from jealous rage rather than justified anger." We spent the next hour dissecting my marriage like a business transaction. The house, bought before wedding but renovated with joint funds likely mine to keep. Savings accounts, retirement funds, car loans, credit card debts. I realized with bitter irony that I'd been funding the affair without knowing it. Hotel charges on our joint visa I'd assumed were girls' trips. Expensive lingerie purchases that barely registered when I paid bills. Restaurant dinners she claimed were book club meetings. Every lie had a paper trail and I'd paid for it all. "We'll file today," Paul declared, sliding papers across the desk. Divorce petition, asset division requests, temporary restraining orders on joint accounts. Once these are served, she won't be able to drain savings or run up debt in your name. I signed each document with steady hands, reading every line carefully before committing. This was the beginning of the end. First formal step toward destroying the life Vanessa thought she could maintain while betraying me. "One more thing," Paul said as I prepared to leave. "Document everything from this point forward. Every interaction, phone call, text message. If she tries claiming harassment or emotional abuse later, you'll need clear records showing you acted reasonably and legally." I shook his hand and walked out with divorce papers in a manila folder, feeling something like hope for the first time since Saturday morning. This was action, progress, systematic dismantling of the lie my marriage had become. The drive home felt different. I wasn't going back to our house. I was going back to my house to claim what was mine and prepare for war. Vanessa's car wasn't in the driveway. Another yoga class, probably. Another lie covering another afternoon in some hotel room with my brother. I walked through rooms slowly, seeing everything with new eyes. Not a home anymore, but an asset. A battlefield prize. All of it would be mine when this was over. The papers were filed. The evidence was documented. All that remained was letting them know their lives were over. I decided to start with my family. That evening, I texted Ethan. "Need to talk. Important. Where are you?" Response came within seconds. "At Mom and Dad's. Come over." Perfect. An audience. The drive to my parents' colonial house, where I'd grown up, now renovated with Ethan's money, felt like traveling back to a place where I'd been naive enough to believe in family loyalty. My hands gripped the steering wheel until knuckles went white. I'd planned what to say, but rage was a living thing inside me, barely contained by thin self-control. I walked through the front door without knocking, a childhood privilege I'd never use again after tonight. The scene was painfully normal. Parents on their leather sectional watching TV, Ethan sprawled in the recliner with expensive scotch, scrolling his phone and chuckling. "Nathan!" Mom stood surprised. "We weren't expecting you. Is everything okay?" she asked. I didn't answer. I walked straight to Ethan, grabbed his collar, and yanked him from the chair with enough force to send his scotch glass flying. It shattered against the hardwood, the same hardwood he'd paid to install. "What the hell?" Ethan started. but my fist connected with his jaw before he could finish. The impact echoed like a gunshot. Ethan went down hard, head bouncing off the coffee table, and I followed him to the floor. Every punch felt like a release valve, months of suppressed rage pouring through my knuckles as they connected with his face, ribs, anywhere I could reach. "You son of a bitch," I roared, voice raw and animalistic. "My wife? You're sleeping with my wife?" Blood sprayed from Ethan's nose across the expensive rug Mom was so proud of. He tried protecting his face, gasping and choking on blood running down his throat. "Nathan, wait!" he wheezed. "How long?" I punctuated with another punch to his ribs. "How long have you been having intimacy with my wife?" Mom was screaming somewhere behind me, but it sounded underwater. All I could hear was satisfying crunch of cartilage breaking under my fist, wet sound of blood hitting floor. Ethan's panicked whimpering as he realized I wasn't stopping. Dad finally got between us, his 60-year-old frame still strong enough to pull me back. "Nathan, stop! This is violence!" he shouted. "Violence!" I whirled on him, and he stepped back at the fury in my eyes. "You want to talk about violence? Your son destroyed my marriage! He's been sleeping with my wife for months!" Deafening silence followed. Even Mom stopped screaming. Ethan was on the floor, nose obviously broken, one eye swelling shut, blood pooling beneath him on his expensive hardwood. He was gasping like a fish out of water. 6 months, he finally choked out, words bubbling through blood. "Maybe 7. The admission hit like another physical blow. 7 months. More than half a year of betrayal, lies, them laughing about how clueless I was. "Nathan, calm down," Dad said, voice shaking. "Violence isn't going to solve violence." I laughed harshly. "What about what he did to my marriage? My trust? Our family?" Then I saw something in my father's face that made my blood turn to ice. Not shock, not surprise. Guilt. Recognition. "You knew," I said quietly. Silence stretched like a taut wire. "You knew?" My voice rose to a shout that rattled windows. "You knew and didn't tell me." Mom looked away, tears streaming. Dad's mouth opened and closed, searching for non-existent words. "Nathan, it's complicated," he started weakly. "How is it complicated?" "Ethan has been successful," Dad said, words coming out weak and ashamed. "He's built something impressive. We didn't want to cause problems in the family over what might just be a phase." The words hit worse than any punch I'd thrown. My parents, people who raised me, supposed to protect me, had chosen money over their own son. "So you chose him over me because he's rich?" My voice cracked. "You let your son betray me, sleep with my wife, destroy my marriage, and said nothing because he bought you this house? Pays for your vacations?" Mom sobbed openly. "Nathan, please, you have to understand. We thought maybe it would just end on its own," she pleaded. "I understand perfectly," I replied, my voice going dead calm, which scared them more than shouting. "I understand I was never good enough for this family, that no matter what I did, I'd never measure up to golden boy Ethan and his money, that my marriage, my happiness, my life, none of it mattered as much as the vacation home he bought you. That's not true," Dad said hollowly. I looked down at Ethan, still bleeding on his expensive floor. Part of me wanted to kick him while he was down. Instead, I stepped over him like garbage. "Stay away from me," I told him quietly. "Stay away from my wife. Sorry, your mistress. If I see you again, I won't stop at a black eye." I turned to my parents. "And you two? We're done. Don't call. Don't come to my house. Don't send cards. You chose him. Live with that choice," I declared. "Nathan, wait, please." Mom reached for me desperately, but I was already walking out. Behind me, I heard her sobbing, Dad helping Ethan up, expensive things being permanently broken. I didn't look back. Beating Ethan felt good. Cutting off my parents felt necessary. But I still had one more person to destroy, and she was at home, probably texting him right now, still thinking she'd gotten away with it. The drive home passed in a blur of streetlights and righteous fury. My knuckles were split and bleeding. My shirt had blood spatters, Ethan's blood, and my heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my temples. But underneath the adrenaline was something colder, absolute clarity about what came next. Vanessa's car was in the driveway. Home from another book club, another lie in the endless string of deceptions. I sat in my Honda for a moment, looking at our house, my house, and felt something fundamental shift inside me. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene where betrayal had happened for months while I slept beside her, trusting and oblivious. I found her in the living room, curled on our cream sectional in yoga pants and one of my old college sweatshirts, scrolling her phone with wine on the side table. The domestic normalcy was obscene given what I knew. She looked up when I entered, that beautiful smile spreading across her face. The same smile that had made me fall in love, that I'd thought was reserved for me. "Hey, babe, how was your evening with the guys?" she asked cheerfully. I hadn't told her I was going anywhere. She'd just assumed, the way cheaters do, projecting their deception onto everyone else. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my phone, opened one of the videos she'd sent Ethan, and hit play. The volume was loud in our quiet living room. Her voice filled the space, breathy, eager, saying words she'd never said to me, making sounds I'd thought only I had heard. But this wasn't with me. This was her performing for my brother, giving him what she'd never given her husband. Color drained from Vanessa's face so quickly I thought she might faint. She dropped her phone like it burned. "Nathan, where did you—" She started in panic. "Your phone, last Saturday morning. You left it unlocked," I interrupted, swiping to the text messages and holding the screen toward her. 7 months, Vanessa! 7 months of sleeping with my brother while I paid the bills and trusted you completely." She started crying immediately, loud, dramatic sobs that might have moved me a week ago. Now they just sounded like noise. "Nathan, please. Let me explain," she begged. "There's nothing to explain," I said coldly, walking past her toward our bedroom and starting to throw her clothes into suitcases from the closet. "Divorce papers were filed this morning. I have screenshots of everything, every photo, every video, every message. You'll get nothing in the settlement." She followed me, crying so hard she could barely speak. "It was a mistake. It started at your parents' 4th of July party. We were drunk, and it just happened, and then it kept happening, and I couldn't stop." She sobbed. I turned on her with such fury she stepped backward. "You couldn't stop?" My voice was deadly quiet. "You couldn't stop betraying me? You couldn't stop lying to my face every morning? You couldn't stop texting him while I was at work earning money to pay for your hotel rooms?" "I love you," she sobbed desperately. "I still love you. Ethan was just exciting, different. It didn't mean anything. It meant everything," I replied, resuming packing and throwing yoga clothes and designer dresses into suitcases without care. "It meant our marriage was a lie. It meant every I love you was bullshit. It meant you chose excitement over loyalty, novelty over commitment. It meant I never actually knew you at all." I zipped the suitcases closed and dropped them at her feet. "Get out, now! Where am I supposed to go?" Her voice was high and panicked. "Mascara running in black streaks. Call Ethan." "Oh, wait. He's at the emergency room getting his face put back together after I beat the shit out of him for sleeping with my wife," I answered coldly. "Maybe try a hotel. You seem familiar with all the good ones in this city." "Nathan, please!" She reached for me, but I stepped back like she was contaminated. "Get out!" The words exploded with such force she flinched and stumbled backward. Vanessa grabbed the suitcases with shaking hands, her beautiful face destroyed by tears and terror and dawning realization that this wasn't something she could cry or manipulate her way out of. She turned back once at the doorway, looking small and lost. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did hurt me," I said quietly. "Every day for 7 months, and now you get to live with that." The front door closed with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. I stood in our empty house, my empty house, listening to silence that followed 7 years of lies disguised as love. I walked through the rooms slowly, seeing them transformed. The living room where she'd texted my brother while I watched TV beside her. The kitchen where she'd kissed my cheek before going to meet him. The bedroom where she'd slept next to me while planning her next betrayal. Not a home anymore. Just a place where I'd been made a fool of. I sat on the edge of our bed, my bed now, and felt the full weight of what happened settle on my chest like a stone. The marriage was over. My family was gone. My brother was an enemy. My parents had chosen money over loyalty. Everything I'd built my life on had been revealed as hollow. But underneath the grief was something else. Something cold and satisfied and final. They'd all underestimated me. They'd thought I'd never find out. Or that if I did, I'd forgive like the reliable, boring pushover they'd always seen. They were about to learn how wrong they were. My phone buzzed with a text from Paul Mendoza. Papers served. She's officially notified. How are you holding up? I typed back, better than expected. What's next? She thought she could beg her way back in. She thought tears would fix what she'd broken. She had no idea how badly things were about to get for her, or how little mercy I had left to give. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of desperate contact attempts that I ignored. Vanessa called from numbers I didn't recognize, probably the highway motel where she was renting by the week, far from the luxury hotels where she'd been f***ing my brother. I blocked every number. She created new email addresses sending rambling messages about love and mistakes and second chances. I filtered them all to spam without reading past the first line. She showed up at the house twice. The first time, I watched through the window as she pounded on the door, calling my name, her voice breaking with desperation. I sat at my kitchen table and finished dinner while she cried on my porch. The second time, I called the police. "We have a woman here claiming to be your wife," the officer said when he called me back. "She says she just wants to talk." "She's my estranged wife, and she doesn't live here anymore," I replied calmly. "I've asked her not to come to my property. If she refuses to leave, I want her trespassed." They escorted her away with a formal warning. Through the window, I watched her get into a rusted Honda Civic that definitely wasn't the BMW I'd been making payments on. She'd lost access to more than just our house. My parents' reconciliation attempts were equally persistent and equally futile. Phone calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages accumulated unread. A handwritten letter from my mother got returned to sender without opening. "Return to sender," written across the envelope in thick black marker. The breaking point came when Mom showed up at my workplace. "There's a woman at reception claiming to be your mother," my supervisor said uncomfortably. "She's upset. Says she needs to see you." "Tell her I don't have a mother," I said without looking up. "And if she comes back, call security." But when I left that evening, she was waiting by my car. 62 years old and crying like a child, face puffy and desperate. "Nathan, please. Just 5 minutes. We made a mistake. We should have told you. We should have protected you instead of," she pleaded. "Instead of protecting your meal ticket?" I interrupted, not slowing down as I unlocked my car. "Instead of choosing the son who bought you a vacation home over the one whose marriage was being destroyed." "That's not how it was," she protested. "That's exactly how it was," I replied, finally looking at her, and she gasped at the coldness in my eyes. "You chose money over me. You chose Ethan's success over my happiness. You chose to protect the person who was betraying me instead of the person being betrayed. That tells me everything about what I'm worth to you." "You're our son," she whispered. "No," I said calmly, getting into my car. "I was your son. Now I'm just someone you used to know." I drove away without looking back, leaving her standing in the parking lot like a stranger. The divorce proceedings moved with brutal efficiency Paul had promised. Vanessa's attorney, tired-looking Patricia Holbrook, tried negotiating some settlement that would give her client more than the nothing she deserved. But there was nothing to negotiate. "Your client committed adultery with the petitioner's brother for 7 months, Paul told her during a conference call. "We have photographic evidence, video evidence, and months of documented communications. In this state, that constitutes grounds for an at-fault divorce with significant financial consequences." Patricia's sigh was audible. "My client is willing to accept responsibility for her actions. She's hoping for some consideration regarding spousal support." "No spousal support," Paul cut her off. "No alimony. No ongoing financial obligation. She gets her personal belongings and whatever settlement the court deems appropriate for someone who destroyed a 7-year marriage through infidelity with a family member." Through a mutual friend, I learned Vanessa had tried going home to her parents. She'd driven 2 hours to their small ranch house with suitcases and sob story, expecting unconditional support. Her father, Tom, had listened in stony silence. When she finished explaining how it had all been a mistake, how she needed somewhere to stay, he'd looked at her for a long moment. "You cheated on your husband with his brother for 7 months?" he asked quietly. "Daddy, it was complicated," she started. "No, it wasn't," Tom replied, his voice flat and final. "You made a choice every single day for 7 months to betray the man who loved you. You destroyed your marriage for what? Excitement? You threw away everything good for cheap thrills." "I need help," she pleaded. "You need consequences," he answered, standing and walking to the door, holding it open. "You're not welcome here. We raised you better than this. Don't come back until you figure out how to take responsibility for what you've done." He'd closed the door in her face. When I heard this, I felt the smallest flicker of satisfaction. Even her own family had rejected her. She was truly alone. 3 months after filing, the divorce was finalized on a gray Tuesday in Judge Billy's courtroom. Vanessa sat at the defendant's table looking hollow and defeated. Wearing a discount store dress that hung loose on her frame, she'd lost weight living on a receptionist's salary. The settlement was everything Paul had promised. "I kept the house, savings, retirement funds, the newer car." Vanessa walked away with $6,000, enough for 2 months' rent if she was careful. That was it. 7 years of marriage reduced to barely enough money to start whatever new life she could scrape together. "Do you understand the terms of this settlement?" Judge Billy asked her. "Yes, Your Honor," Vanessa whispered. The gavel came down with finality that echoed through the courtroom. Vanessa started crying again, but quietly this time. Like she finally understood, tears wouldn't change anything. Through legal gossip networks, I learned everyone's downfall details over following months. Vanessa was living in a studio apartment in the worst part of town, working as a receptionist at a pediatric dentist's office, her first real job in 7 years. Her social circle had evaporated once word spread about the affair and family betrayal. Ethan was facing his own karma. The real estate market had turned, and several leveraged investments were underwater. Without the emotional support system of family dinners and parental admiration, he was struggling with isolation he'd never experienced. The penthouse was on the market. Expensive cars were being sold off one by one. My parents made one final reconciliation attempt 6 months later. They sent a message through my Aunt Sarah. They want to make things right. They're asking for a chance to apologize properly. My response, delivered through the same aunt. They had their chance every day for 7 months, while they knew my marriage was being destroyed. They made their choice. There's nothing left to discuss. I'd heard that my father had aged visibly since our confrontation. The stress of losing both sons, one through disgust, one through lost respect, was eating at him. My mother had started seeing a therapist, trying to understand how she'd chosen so badly when it mattered most. I felt nothing for their struggles. They'd gambled on money over loyalty and lost. Now they could live with the consequences. The final chapter came almost a year later. Vanessa made one last contact attempt through a mutual friend. "She wanted me to tell you that she's changed," Michelle said during an awkward call. "She's been in therapy working on herself. She understands now how badly she hurt you, and she wants to apologize properly. Tell her I hope she finds what she's looking for," I replied calmly. "But it won't be with me." That door closed permanently the day I found her messages. They all thought I'd come crawling back eventually, that I'd forgive because we were family. They didn't understand that family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty. And they'd proven they had none. 6 months after the divorce, I barely recognized my own life, and I liked it that way. The therapy sessions with Dr. Rebecca Martinez had been Paul's suggestion. Initially, I'd resisted, but the weekly appointments became a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. Betrayal on this scale doesn't just damage trust in individuals, Dr. Martinez explained during one session. It damages trust in your own judgment. You're rebuilding not just your life, but your entire framework for understanding relationships. She was right. The hardest part wasn't the anger. That had burned clean and settled into something manageable. The hardest part was learning to trust my instincts again, to believe I could recognize honesty, to have faith that not everyone was capable of Vanessa's casual cruelty. But gradually, the fog lifted. I reconnected with college friends who'd drifted away during my marriage. Guys Vanessa never liked, probably because they asked too many questions. They welcomed me back without judgment. And slowly I remembered what it felt like to laugh without wondering what secrets were hiding behind other people's smiles. I joined a recreational soccer league, discovered my body still remembered how to compete, how to be part of a team that actually functioned. Saturday mornings that used to be spent making breakfast for a lying wife became hiking adventures outside the city. My legs burning as I climbed toward viewpoints that reminded me the world was bigger than my suburban tragedy. The promotion to senior engineer came with a $20,000 raise and corner office. That felt like forward momentum. Work became something I could pour myself into without reservation. At Jim Kowalski's summer barbecue, I met Iris Chen. She ran her own structural engineering consulting firm, specializing in earthquake retrofitting for historic buildings. We talked for 3 hours about engineering, travel, books. Deep conversations I'd forgotten were possible. She was intelligent without being pretentious, confident in a way that came from building something herself rather than depending on someone else's success. When she gave me her number, I realized I was genuinely smiling for the first time in months. I should mention I'm recently divorced, I said honestly. Still figuring out how to do this again. I appreciate the honesty, Iris replied. I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm looking for someone who can be whole on their own and chooses to share that with someone else. It was exactly what I needed to hear. 1 year after discovering the affair, I was thriving in ways I hadn't thought possible. The bitterness had transformed into healthy boundaries. The rage had settled into quiet confidence of someone who knows his own worth. The grief over lost family had been replaced by gratitude for relationships built on genuine foundation. Iris and I were building something real together, founded on honesty and mutual respect rather than convenience and shared bills. She knew my full story and respected my cautious approach to trust, without pushing for more than I was ready to give. Vanessa had attempted one final contact through a mutual acquaintance. She was changed. She was in therapy. She wanted to explain everything properly. Tell her I hope she finds what she's looking for? I responded to the messenger. But it won't be with me. That door closed permanently the day I found her messages. My parents were still estranged, and I felt no urge to change that. They'd sent a Christmas card to my new downtown condo. I still had no idea how they'd gotten the address, but I threw it away unopened. Some bridges, once burned, aren't meant to be rebuilt. Standing on my balcony on a clear Saturday morning, coffee in hand and Iris still sleeping peacefully in my bed, I thought about that morning a year ago when I'd picked up Vanessa's phone and watched my world shatter. The man I'd been then, trusting to the point of blindness, accepting scraps of attention, settling for mediocre marriage because it felt safe, seemed like a stranger now. They'd all underestimated me. They'd seen the quiet, reliable brother and husband and son, and assumed that meant weak. They'd confused kindness with stupidity, loyalty with naivety, stability with desperation. They'd been wrong about everything. The best revenge wasn't the legal victory or financial settlement, or even watching them face consequences. The best revenge was this: building a life so much better than what I'd lost that I could look back on their betrayal as a favor. I was finally the author of my own story, not the supporting character in someone else's drama. Not the reliable backup plan, not the convenient fool. I was writing my own life now, surrounded by people who valued honesty and loyalty because they possessed those qualities themselves. The man who'd discovered his wife's affair had been destroyed. The man who'd built something new from the ashes was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more alive than the one who'd come before. And that was the best possible ending. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching. and I'll see you in the next one.